Mr. President, once again, I'm here on the floor for the Waste of the Week. Each week of 2015, this cycle of the Senate, I've come to the floor to discuss an issue of waste, fraud, and abuse, misspent taxpayer money, identified by neutral agencies of the federal government that didn't have a partisan bone to pick in this, or by inspector generals of various agencies, or by the agencies themselves. In February, I said I'm going to come here every week throughout the duration of this session, and I'm going to try to achieve a goal of $100 billion of waste. I wasn't sure we could reach that goal, but today is a very special day because we're going to highlight by the end of my speech here over $100 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse that the taxpayer is trying to cover through their hard-earned pay back at home. Over the past several months, I've highlighted a variety of examples from the serious, such as the illegal procurement practices at the Veterans Administration, to the ridiculous, taxpayers funding for massages of rabbits under grants to determine whether or not a massage after strenuous exercise made them feel better. I think we didn't need to gather a bunch of rabbits and put it through about a $400,000, as I recall, grant to an organization that made machines. This is almost too funny to without laughing, to talk about, made machines to mechanically massage the backs of rabbits. And I think just stop anybody on the street and say, you think a good massage would make you feel a little bit better, especially after strenuous exercise? I think the answer would be yes. Actually, I thought I might want to sign up for this, but till I found out that when the experiment was over, they killed the rabbits, so I didn't want to put myself in that position. Now, from the young taxpayer improper and fraudulent child tax credit refunds to the old, the Social Security checks that were being sent out to individuals over the age of 112. Obviously, there weren't too many people in the country, if any, over that age, but their numbers hadn't been taken out of the system, and the checks kept just going out. And these people had obviously died many, many years before. So on and on it goes, and we are deluged with examples of waste, fraud, and abuse, which, brings some chuckles, brings some, can you believe we're actually doing that? But the bottom line is that people out there working hard every day to make ends meet, to pay the mortgage, to buy the groceries, to save money, to send the kids to school, and they're sending taxes to Washington, and the bureaucracy is doing stuff like this. And it's a bad break for taxpayers, and it's shameless for government not to take measures to stop these things from happening. So I'm trying to disclose it to the public, and this is how your taxpayer money is being spent, so that they'll put pressure on their members and say, clean it up. And fortunately, we've been able to do some of that, but there's a long way to go. Well, anyway, today I want to discuss errors with payments under the Earned Income Tax Credit. Let me just go back and explain this. The Earned Income Tax Credit is a refundable tax credit that offsets income tax owed by low-income taxpayers. Now, Congress originally approved this Earned Income Tax Credit in 1975. To offset the burden of Social Security for low-income workers and provide an incentive for them to work. So a good motive here. And to some extent, it has worked. But when the credit the way it works is this: when the credit exceeds the amount of taxes due, it provides a lump sum payment after you file your taxes to those who qualify for the program. People who work but earn less than a certain income level qualify for this refund from the government, and according to the Congressional Research Service, this tax credit is the largest need-tested anti-poverty cash assistance program the federal government runs. So whether you think this is the right program or not, the question here is, how is it being run? And is it efficient and effective? or is it making mistakes? You know, we're talking about big government here, and so mistakes are usually big mistakes, if there are some. Well, in 2011, the IRS identified more than 6.6 million potentially erroneous earned income tax credit claims that went to households that didn't qualify. Individuals were telling the government that they're working and earning and therefore eligible for the earned income tax credit bonus check, but at the same time they were telling other agencies, like the Supplemental Social Security Program, that they're not earning that much or not working or don't have income and can collect more money for, quote, being identified as disabled. So they're ending up getting double checks, one for working and one for not working. So when we add all that up, the latest year that has been identified is 2013, and the tax credit cost taxpayers during that year, $14.5 billion. $14.5 billion of fraudulent, wasted taxpayer fraud, mistakes made by the agency handing out these checks, the IRS. So if we can put in place measures that can provide accountability and verification to this program, we can save the taxpayer up to $14.5 billion a year. So with that, we add to our gauge an additional $14.5 billion, and as you can see, by the climbing up each week of money saved through the various programs we've identified, we have now eclipsed the $100 billion level, and we're just a little ways past the middle of the year. I could take the charts, stick them in the back closet, say thank you, got my $100 billion, made my point, but I'm going to keep going. Every week the Senate is in session for the remainder of this year. I will be back down here with yet another waste of the week so that we can embarrass, so that we can disclose, so that we can let agencies know that they are wasting taxpayers' dollars and that we as a Congress need to do something about that. Now you say $100 billion, some people say, in comparison with the total federal budget, that's a drop in the bucket. Well, $100 billion is almost incomprehensible. Maybe Donald Trump understands what $100 billion is, but I don't. In terms of the magnitude of that amount of money, it is a small part of what we spend here. But we could do so much more in terms of identifying issues and programs that would save the taxpayer money. Federal spending is out of control. We know that. This highlights some of that. The real issue is much worse. And while states such as mine, the state of Indiana, have created balanced budgets, have eliminated debt, have provided surpluses which they can use to return to taxpayers, or save for a rainy day, the federal government has not done that. This is a huge challenge in front of us. This is just a small piece of trying to identify some of the problems and challenges that we have, and by identifying them, saving the taxpayer money and making reforms to these various programs. So with that, Mr. President, I will yield back the floor, but you can count on me being here every week through the rest of this session with the waste of the week, as long as the Congress and the Senate is in session. With that, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of quorum.